I still remember the first night I spent in that apartment. It was an old, run-down building in a quiet part of town, the kind where people often stayed for a few months and then disappeared, never to be heard from again. But I needed a place to live, and the rent was cheap. So, despite the warnings from the neighbors and the uneasy look on the landlord's face, I signed the lease and moved in. It was supposed to be temporary. Just a few months, I thought. I didn't believe in ghosts, curses, or any of that nonsense. But I quickly realized that the apartment was hiding something much darker than I could have ever imagined. On the first night, everything seemed normal, too normal, in fact. The creaks of the old wooden floors were drowned out by the hum of the refrigerator. But that silence, that oppressive, thick silence, was the first sign that something wasn't right. I figured it was just the house settling, but then I heard it. A low, almost inaudible sound, like scratching. It started in the walls, then moved to the ceiling, and finally to the floor beneath me. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just the pipes or an animal. But when I laid down to sleep, the scratching grew louder, more frantic, as if whatever it was trapped and trying to get out. I tried to push the covers over my head, but it didn't stop. The sound was so close now, it felt as though it was coming from inside the room with me. I could hear it shifting under the floorboards. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I froze in terror. I couldn't explain it, but something deep within me told me that this was no normal noise. It wasn't just the apartment settling, it was something alive, something that had been there long before I moved in. And as I lay there, listening to the scratching, I knew that I was never truly alone in that apartment. The scratching didn't stop. In fact, it got worse. Over the next few nights, I could hear it more clearly. At first, it was just under the floorboards, but soon, the noise moved up the walls, then to the ceiling. It was relentless. I thought I was going crazy. I tried everything, listening to music, turning on every light in the apartment, even trying to drown out the sound with the TV on full blast. But nothing worked. The scratching would always return, always growing louder. The real terror came the night I decided to investigate. I had enough of it. I wasn't going to let my mind play tricks on me any longer. I grabbed a flashlight, tried to steady my shaking hands, and made my way down the narrow hallway toward the living room. I was halfway through the dark, cluttered space when I saw them, shadows moving along the walls. They weren't the kind of shadows you'd expect to see from a light source. They were dark, dark as night, and they moved too fast, darting from one corner of the room to the next. No flickering, no pause, just a quick, sharp movement as if something invisible was sliding across the walls. The flashlight beam seemed to bend around them, as though they were pushing the light away. I froze, heart pounding in my chest, as one of the shadows seemed to pause, just for a second, before it started to crawl across the wall toward me. I felt my breath catch in my throat, and for a moment, I couldn't move. The air turned cold, too cold. A chill that made me shiver to the bone. Then, the scratching started again. But this time, it was different. It wasn't coming from the floor, or the walls, or even the ceiling. It was coming from behind me. I turned around slowly, my heart pounding in my ears. There, in the hallway, a dark figure stood. It was tall, too tall, with long, spindly limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally. Its face was obscured by the darkness, but its eyes, those eyes were glowing, faint, red, like dying embers in a fire. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, into thin air, like a ghost fading into the shadows. I ran back to my room, locked the door, and sat in the corner, trembling, until the sun rose. But that didn't stop the terror. The scratching was still there. The shadows never left. I didn't know what it was, or what it wanted, but I knew one thing for sure, it wasn't just a figment of my imagination. I didn't sleep for the next few days. Every creak, every distant scrape against the walls, every faint whisper in the dark, made my heart race. I became a prisoner in my own apartment. But something had changed after that night, the shadows, the scratching, and the feeling that I was being watched constantly, it all became more intense. One evening, in a moment of desperation, I decided to explore the apartment more thoroughly. I needed to find answers. Something about that place wasn't right, and I knew deep down that if I didn't uncover the truth soon, I'd lose my mind. I started with the storage closet at the end of the hallway. It was small, cramped, and filled with old, dusty boxes. I had passed it a dozen times before, but something about it felt different now. It was like it was calling to me, daring me to open it. I pulled the door open with a creak. The smell inside was overwhelming, a mix of mildew and something else, something foul. As I rifled through the boxes, I found a small wooden door hidden behind some old furniture, nearly invisible in the shadows. The door was strange, old, decaying, and covered in layers of dust and grime. But what struck me most was the feeling I got when I touched it. It was cold, colder than anything I had ever felt. I almost felt as though it didn't belong to this place. Something about it seemed out of place. I couldn't help myself. I grabbed the handle, pulled the door open, and immediately stepped back in shock. The room behind it was hidden. It was small, about the size of a closet, but it had no windows, and the walls were covered in strange, cryptic symbols. The air inside felt thick, heavy, and suffocating. There was an old, tattered mattress in the corner, along with piles of broken furniture, all of it covered in dust and decay. But there, in the farthest corner, was something else, something that froze my blood. A mirror. It was large, framed in cracked, chipped wood, and covered in grime, just like everything else. But as I moved closer, I noticed something chilling. The reflection wasn't right. At first, I thought it was just the dim light playing tricks on me, but no, it was as if something else was in the mirror. It wasn't me. It wasn't the apartment. In the reflection, there was a dark figure standing behind me. It was blurry at first, but I could make out its shape, tall, hunched, with a face that was a twisted mess of shadows and sharp features. The moment I noticed it, the figure stepped closer to me in the mirror, as if it was about to reach out, and I felt the temperature drop so quickly that my breath fogged in front of me. I spun around, but there was nothing behind me. My mind raced. What was it? Was it the same figure I saw in the hallway? I stumbled backward, the cold sweat making my skin feel slick as I backed out of the room. I slammed the door shut behind me and bolted it, but the scratching started again, louder, angrier, as if whatever was behind that door was demanding to be let out. I didn't want to stay another night in that apartment. But I had no choice. I had nowhere else to go. I wasn't sure how much longer I could survive this. I knew now, more than ever, that whatever was in that apartment wasn't just trying to scare me, it wanted something more. And I had a horrible feeling that it wasn't going to stop until it got it. The days after discovering the hidden room felt like I was living in a nightmare. The scratching had escalated, no longer confined to the walls and floor, it now followed me from room to room. Every time I tried to leave the apartment, the feeling of being watched became unbearable. It was as though the entire place had come alive, and whatever thing lurked within it was growing stronger with every passing moment. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't escape the apartment. I decided to take a risk. I had to find out who had lived in this place before me, what happened to the previous tenants. Maybe then, I could make sense of the torment I was enduring. I visited the landlord again. His face had become a mask of unease every time I asked questions, but this time, something was different. I could see the fear in his eyes when I mentioned the strange happenings, the sounds, the shadowy figures. He told me to leave it alone, warned me that I wouldn't survive the truth. But I pressed him, pushed him harder. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he cracked. "There's a reason no one stays long in that building," he said, his voice trembling. "It was built on top of something that should never have been disturbed. He hesitated, then told me the most chilling part. In the 1940s, a man named Elijah Graves lived there. He was a recluse, kept to himself, never left the apartment for weeks. People in the building started noticing odd things, loud banging noises, things moving around on their own, strange smells wafting through the hallways. But no one dared to confront him. Eventually, one morning, they found him dead in his apartment. His face was twisted, like he had seen something that drove him insane. No one knew what had happened to him, but when they went through his things, they found old ritualistic symbols, drawings, writings, things that shouldn't have been there. They say he had been trying to summon something. I froze. My mind was racing, and the room felt like it was closing in on me. I thought back to the mirror, the cryptic symbols on the walls. Had Elijah Graves been trying to summon the same dark presence that now haunted me? The landlord's face turned pale. "You're not the first person to be affected by it," he said softly. "People who stay too long in that building, they either go mad, disappear, or," he trailed off, unable to finish his sentence. I didn't need him to say more. I knew what he meant. I had seen the figure in the mirror, felt its cold breath behind me, heard the scratching, the whispers. The thing that Elijah Graves had tried to summon had found a way to stay, to linger in that place. I had to leave, but deep down, I knew I was already too far gone. Whatever was in that apartment wasn't just attached to the walls or floors, it had attached itself to me. That night, I went back to the apartment, determined to end it. I thought if I could confront whatever was there, whatever had taken over, I might finally be able to break the curse. But as I stepped through the door, the shadows were waiting for me. And this time, they were angry. The scratching was deafening, and the air grew so cold I could see my breath. I tried to reach the door, but I felt a hand, cold and clammy, grab my shoulder. I spun around, but again, there was nothing. I heard it, though. A voice, low and guttural, like it was coming from deep within the walls, murmuring something that I couldn't understand. But then, it spoke my name. "Leave." I ran, but I didn't make it far. My body was frozen with terror, my legs refusing to move. The shadows surrounded me, their eyes glowing red as they closed in. It wasn't just one figure anymore. It was a mass of them, crawling across the walls, the floor, and the ceiling. I heard the sound of something scraping across the floor behind me, and before I knew it, I was back in the hidden room, the door slamming shut behind me. There was no escape. I've been here for days now. Trapped. The shadows keep circling me, never letting me sleep. I feel like I'm losing my mind. The mirror, it's calling to me. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. And I don't know if I'll ever leave this apartment again. The air in the apartment feels heavier than ever. Every breath I take burns in my lungs, every step I make echoes through the walls like a reminder of my inevitable fate. The shadows, they're no longer just figures. They're part of the apartment, part of me. I feel them everywhere now, crawling beneath my skin, watching me with eyes that burn into my soul. I tried to escape again, really tried. I thought I could make it out the door, leave it all behind, but it's like the building itself is holding me captive. The moment I reach the stairs, the floor beneath me starts to buckle, groaning with a force that's impossible to ignore. It's as though the building is alive, as though it's watching my every move, ensuring I'll never get away. I'm running out of time. The scratching has become deafening, relentless, and it's not just from the walls or floor anymore. It's in my head. Sometimes, I can't tell where the sound is coming from. It's like something is crawling inside of me, making my thoughts twist and turn, pulling me deeper into madness. But the worst part is the mirror. The one in the hidden room. It's no longer just a reflection, it's alive. Every time I look into it now, I see it more clearly. The figure. It's not just a shadow anymore. It has shape. It has form. And every time I stare into the glass, I feel it pulling me closer, like it's trying to take over my mind. The face is twisted, a grotesque combination of shadows and sharp angles, its eyes glowing like burning embers, and its smile, God, the smile, is too wide. Too much like a grin of someone who knows they've already won. I can't stop looking at it. It's calling me. The walls are closing in. The scratching is louder now, mingling with a low, guttural chant I can't understand. It feels like the apartment itself is breathing, and with each passing moment, it grows hungrier. I thought I could survive this, but now I'm not so sure. There's something in the air that's choking me, something that tells me I'm not going to make it out. And I know I'm not the first to think that. I remember the stories. The ones the landlord told me. How the others who lived here didn't leave. How they vanished, their names erased from the building's history. I thought it was just superstition, but now I know it's the truth. I'm just another lost soul in a long line of them. Something, someone, is waiting for me. I can feel it drawing near, just beyond the corners of my vision, just outside of my reach. The scratching is now deafening. It's not just on the walls anymore. It's in my skin. In my bones. And then, I heard it again. That voice. The one that whispered my name the night I first saw the figure in the mirror. Come. It wasn't a request. It was a command. And I knew, deep down, that if I didn't go, I'd never leave this place. So now, as I write this, I can feel it. It's coming for me. The figure in the mirror, the thing that Elijah Graves tried to summon so many years ago, it's not just a shadow. It's waiting. Waiting for me to cross the line. I don't know what will happen when I go into that room again. I don't know if I'll ever leave. But I have to try. Because if I don't, I'll be just another voice in the walls, another whisper in the darkness, and the world will forget that I ever existed. But I won't forget. I won't let anyone forget what happened here. The end, or is it? I'm sitting in the corner of the hidden room now, the mirror reflecting my fear. The shadows feel like they're pushing against the walls, like they're closing in on me from all sides, squeezing the air out of my lungs. I don't know how long it's been since I wrote last, time has lost all meaning. There's only the darkness, and it feels as if it's swallowing everything whole. I hear the voice again. It's no longer a whisper, but a clear, mocking command. Come. It's not a request. It's not even an invitation. It's the promise of something far worse if I don't obey. I'm standing now, the cold floor beneath me like ice on my bare feet. The room is too still. I feel like I'm trapped inside a nightmare that I can't wake up from. Every muscle in my body is trembling, but I can't stop myself from moving forward. The mirror beckons. I know I have no choice but to answer its call. As I approach it, I notice something new. The reflection isn't just a reflection anymore. The thing inside the mirror is no longer just a shadow, it's reaching out, its hands pressing against the glass, as if it wants to pull me in. I can see its eyes, glowing like embers, burning with hunger. It wants me. And I know it's going to take me if I don't stop it now. I step closer to the mirror. My breath fogs up the surface, and for a brief moment, I can't see anything. But then, something shifts. The figure is inside the mirror now, fully formed, standing just a few inches from me. Its twisted face is inches from my own, its sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. It smiles, wide and crooked, and I feel my heart racing as I realize, this thing is not just a reflection. It's real. In a moment of clarity, I remember the landlord's words. The ritual Elijah Graves performed, it was meant to bring something through from the other side. The building was built on land that had been cursed long before it was constructed. The thing Elijah had summoned wasn't just a ghost, but something much worse. Something ancient. Something that could cross between worlds if given the chance. I feel a sharp pain in my chest, like the thing in the mirror is clawing at me from the other side. I try to back away, but my legs feel heavy, like they're stuck in concrete. I can't move. My body is betraying me. I can feel the weight of the darkness pressing in around me, suffocating me. It laughs. A deep, guttural sound that vibrates the very air around me. You belong to me now, it says, its voice like nails on a chalkboard. The mirror cracks, just a little at first. But then, the cracks spread like lightning, covering the entire surface. The glass splinters, and I see its hand, its real hand, reach through the broken shards. I try to scream, but no sound escapes my throat. I can't breathe. I can't move. The hand grabs my arm, cold as ice, and pulls me forward. My vision goes blurry, but I can still hear it, its laughter, growing louder as the world around me shatters. And then, everything goes black. Days later, I woke up. I don't know how, I don't know why. My head is throbbing, and when I open my eyes, I realize I'm no longer in the apartment. But I'm not free. I'm lying on a dirty floor, in a place that looks like it used to be a basement, old, damp, and filled with dust. But that's not what chills me the most. There, in the corner of the room, is a mirror. It's cracked, just like the one in the apartment. And as I stare at it, I see a face, my own, but not quite. There's something different about it. The eyes are darker, and the smile, it's wrong. Too wide. And then, I hear the voice. Come. I turn around, but no one is there. And that's when I realize. It's still here. It never left. I've come to understand something chilling. There is no escape. Not really. The apartment, the mirror, the shadows, they were never just things that existed within the walls of that cursed building. They were part of something far greater, something older, and it doesn't follow the rules of time or space. I thought when I left the apartment, when I escaped through that cracked mirror, I would finally be free. But I wasn't. The moment I crossed over, I realized the truth: it doesn't matter where I go. It doesn't matter if I'm miles away or in a new city, the thing that Elijah Graves summoned has already attached itself to me. The cracks in the mirror have followed me. And so has the voice. It's always there, deep in the back of my mind. Come. Always beckoning, always calling. The apartment is still there, waiting for someone new to step inside. It wants more. It always wants more. I tried to bury myself in normal life, new job, new people, trying to forget. But I can't. I hear the whispers in every reflection, feel the cold touch of its fingers brushing against my neck in every shadow. The thing in the mirror is still here, inside me. Its presence is in every quiet moment, every crack in the glass, every time I look into the eyes of someone else, seeing them just a little too long, wondering if they, too, are cursed. I should have known. I should have never stepped foot in that place. But now, it's too late. I went back to the apartment a few weeks ago, determined to end it. But the building was abandoned. Empty. As if it had never been there. No landlord, no neighbors, no shadows. But I know it was real. The scratches in the walls, the cold, the darkness, they were all real. And as I stood there in the empty lot, the wind howled, and the sound of a door creaking echoed through the air. I ran. I ran until my legs gave out, until my breath was ragged. But the truth had already set in. I belong to it now. Every night, when I close my eyes, I see the reflection again. Not just in mirrors anymore, on windows, on darkened puddles, in every shiny surface I pass. And every time, it smiles that same twisted grin. The one that says it's not over. The one that says it's just begun. Come. It knows my name now. It always will. And no matter where I go, no matter how far I run, it will be there. Waiting. Watching. And when the time comes, it will take me back. The apartment is never truly empty. The curse never ends. And I am its last victim.